37. Now it's Ken Newburger, Executive Director, Mississippi Medical Association. Boy, that's a sharp retort there, isn't it?
I don't know how I'm going to follow that. That's quite a story.
Man, I mean, that one right there would leave bruises on you after you read that one. Or else you'd have to get some Visine and clear the eyes out because they would be red after that and taking to the woodshed, let me call it that. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We had a story last week that Alabama's having some. Are you keeping up with that? Alabama's having some problems with their rollout.
A little bit.
They had to go back and re-qualify some people. They did all of that wrong. They got to go back and re-qualify some people. And the reason I hate to say it. Here's a confession. I enjoy seeing that is because we do things like the casinos and lottery, and when we do things like this, we do a pretty darn good job. And the people who are in charge, from the legislature to the people appointed by the people who appoint them, should be given a pat on the back.
I think so. I also take a little bit of pride, I think would be the best word to use, about how we have put together this program, how quickly we put it out, and how few bumps there were. I mean, every other southern state has had a lot more problems rolling out a program. Alabama is just one of, I think, the fourth to have a problem like that.
Some of the other ones also had the same rollout problems with qualification and not being able to figure out who to certify or not?
Yes, so Arkansas had some really big problems. It took them 2 years before they were able to start licensing businesses. Florida and Louisiana had similar problems, not as bad, and now Alabama. So we're light years ahead of them in the way that we've put out our program.
Yeah. Where are our major hiccups right now, though?
So our biggest hiccups right now have really been smoothed out. We had quite a few at the beginning of the year, but through both legislative action and some really monumental efforts with the Department of Health, we've smoothed that out. We only had about 1,500 or so patients in January, and now we have, as of today, 17,000.
Whoa, we went from 1,500 to 17,000?
In just about 5.5 months.
That is incredible.
And it was mostly
that a backlog of just getting the certification program on fast speed? Is that it?
That's right. A lot of it was a backlog, but it was just they had to come up with the right processes to quickly see and certify patients.
So don't expect that rate of ascension on a regular basis. Is what you're seeing. Actually,
I would say we should be able to see that maintained for probably another six or 7 months. I don't think it's going to sustain itself for another year, but I think for another 6 or 7 months.
What percentage of the population, is there a forecast out there, what percentage of the population will partake in this?
Yeah, the forecast is a little over almost 3.5% is what we anticipate, but it'll take about 4 years before we anticipate.
600,000 people?
150,000 people.
So 150,000 people,
right.
Okay. Across the state.
Right, and it'll probably take about 3.5, 4 years before that many people interact with it, and people will fall off that they decide it's not for them, or it's not working or something, that they might not use it.
Are we having problems finding doctors that will dispense this, or is that coming at a regular speed that you expected?
It's a lot of them jumped out at the beginning that wanted to do it, and that rate has slowed. More and more doctors are incorporating it into their standard practice. We're hearing more and more that family doctors are starting to get their certifications really as a service to one or two patients to find out if it's good for them. But that's really what we hoped would happen, is that it wouldn't just be specialized doctors, but it would be more physicians that are trying to make it part of what they offer.
We all worried about this and not being novices and virgins at this whole industry. We all worried that there would be some guys coming in and doing the certification, flying into Jackson doing the certification, and then it'll be a telephone chop shop type operation somewhere in Minnesota that some almost debunked doctor would be doing. So, but that hasn't materialized, and that's good news.
It tried to be materialized towards the end of last year and at the beginning of this year, but it was shut down pretty quickly by our Department of Health and Board of Medical Licensure, saying this is not how we can do it here. It must be an in-person examination. myself and the Mississippi Cannabis Patients Alliance tried to get the word out as best we could. Say, hey, if somebody says, I'll just have a call with you, be it a phone call or a Zoom call, that's not enough for your certification. So you need to make sure that you are scheduling an in-person visit with a doctor. So
any requirements how long that doctor or any other health care professional who is certified to do this has to be practicing in the state of Mississippi before they can take care of this or take part in this?
I'm not entirely sure if that's something within their scope of practice that they have to have, but it must be within their scope of practice, and they must be licensed and physically present in Mississippi.
Have we had anybody having a problem now as far as firearms are concerned? Because that's always a point of contention that if you have a medical marijuana card, you cannot purchase a firearm.
Yeah, a lot of people ask about that. We haven't heard of any stories where that's happening. We haven't had any stories of people having their guns taken away or losing their rights outright. The bill itself protects you from Mississippi law enforcement doing that. So we haven't heard any problems with it, but it is something that I hear a lot.
Ken Newburger, Executive Director, Mississippi Medical Marijuana Association. Ken, how many talking about doctors compared to nurses or nurse practitioners, what's the breakdown of these licenses as far as the healthcare officials across the state?
The last time I heard from the Department of Health about that breakdown is we have about twice as many physicians and nurse practitioners, but more nurse practitioners were signing on. The rate that they were signing on was faster. So I'm not sure where it's at now, but we had about 160 physicians and about 80 nurse practitioners.
How about optometrists? Any optometrists?
I think it's not that many. It's like 6 or 7.
Across the state? How about that? I would thought there was going to be more.
Yes, especially with glaucoma. I mean, everybody thought that was going to be a big thing.
I was going to say, did we do anything as far as the rules and regulations that kicked in on July the 1st that affects this? Or were some of those laws immediately put into law immediately?
Our law was effective upon passage, so it has been active since
and that was
March.
What? That was the clarification or speeding up the processing part.
That's correct. Yes.
That's it. Anything new that was going to happen coming up in the next legislative session that you do? Can we talk about that when we come back?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Any other bumps in the road that need to be corrected in the next legislative session for 2024? We will do that. If you're staying in a hotel, here are the things you do. If you're booking something for tomorrow or maybe this weekend, you're taking your 4th of July week off or vacation, hotel tips when we come back on what to do and not to do when booking a hotel. Ken Newburger, after that, Captain Chris Turnipseed. Supposed to be a record traveling period today for the 4th of July holiday. And also, Caleb Sailors will be with us coming up at 8:37. We'll take a look at the view of the news from last week and upcoming week, and also this Tyree Irving decision to step down. Reminding you also that we have the Palmer Home Radiothon coming up next week. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. What not to do when you're staying in a hotel. Ken Newburger is our guest executive director. You heading down the weekend, or you're staying home ground this I say the weekend. I mean the 4th of July tomorrow.
I'm here.
You're not traveling.
No. So we have a second child now, and she's very young and not easy to travel with that. So
that's called an anchor. It'll keep you grounded.
Yeah, that's right.
If you are going on vacation this summer and staying in a hotel, some things that you should never do, according to the experts. Chintan Dagwich, general manager of the Conrad New York Downtown Hotel, said his list is this: don't book a hotel last minute, because if you book a hotel last minute, you're going to get a suck deal. The farther out you can do it, the better. If it's a special occasion, tell the hotel, because sometimes they have some amenities for you. I didn't know that. Don't forget to specify room needs when booking. Never forget to ask for a care package. What's a care package from a hotel? Guess they give you a little goodies or something. I'm not sure.
A little candy or something.
Yeah. If there's a bellman, do not skip talking to him. because he can do some things for you. One tip not on the list, he said, mention always show kindness because you'll get it in return. That is absolutely the truth. I did notice one thing here when we had the news. It was Mike Cheney giving tips on fireworks. But the real experts is this audience on C Spire text line. So if you have any tips for people when celebrating with fireworks, you may want to give them to us at 601-879-4395. Most of those arrived because of experience. 601-879-4395. Your tips that you've learned through experience on for others. Maybe you can save them some grief or maybe embellish their enjoyment. We were talking about the doctors and everything else out there, but are you where you want to be as far as the association is, and you think the health department, as far as the number of doctors and people that we have out there, and vendors too, by the way? Because they are slowly but surely coming, but my understanding the last time I heard, we're not opening enough stores to meet people's needs in some areas.
I think you're right a little bit. Some areas are over-indexed. I know Tupelo has, I think, 13 or 14 dispensaries, which is really, really a lot.
I didn't realize that many.
Right.
Within the city limits of Tupelo?
That's right.
Wow.
And so that might be a little over-indexed for how many people are up there, as opposed to, I think Oxford has like 4, and Jackson has 7 or 8 that are open. I mean, it's just exploded in some areas and some not so much. Our more rural areas are not seeing as much attention because these businesses are looking at, well, maybe I should invest in a place where there's a population that can sustain it. Yep. And when 14 people think the same thing, then it becomes overcrowded. So that's a little bit of our problems there.
I haven't looked at the laws on this one, but I would imagine you can't have a store like a drugstore or something, not a drugstore, but let's just take another store, a dry goods store or something, and open up a section of that as it's got to be a standalone, almost like a liquor store.
That's right. It's got to be its own physical address, and it's got to be walled off. You can't go between the two of them.
Any problems with any of those? Anything that needs to be changed in the 2024 election, or 2024 session coming up?
There are a lot of things that people want to see. The number one thing we're hearing is from patients that you can only buy a week at a time. And so if you live an hour away because everywhere opted out between you and, let's use Tupelo as an example, then that's a cost to the patient that adds up over time. You got to pay for gas several times a month, where if you could buy 2 weeks at a time or a full month at a time, much more like traditional medicine, that would be huge. And that's one of the things we want to see. Another thing is the CBD and synthetic cannabis problem across the nation is really picking up and curbing against some of those the stuff you find at gas stations and bringing that more into a more regulated light. That's something we'd like to see.
I mentioned a little bit earlier about the magic mushrooms, and that's another big story, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But the magic mushrooms, these candy gummies.
I don't know much about the magic mushrooms.
Have you seen them? I haven't seen them, but I was, and I have a picture of them. I'll see if I can tweet it out a little bit later on. But they're called magic mushrooms, and apparently some of the side effects are pretty severe.
Well, I do know that the state of Florida had a convention in the past year or so where they said be wary of all of these masquerading and unregulated products, and it was a bunch of candy products that they have renamed for pseudo marijuana purposes that they're selling all over the state in like gas stations and vape shops.
And we have no idea what's in some of this stuff. And they're packaged just like regular gummies in different flavors, vanilla, strawberry, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure chocolate, but it just looks like something a kid could pick up. And why in the world we allow this at gas stations? And apparently they found a little niche in the law, federal and state laws that allowed them to do this, and man, they've taken advantage of it. There's only one state that has any prohibition against that in the United States of America that prohibits them from doing this. And that is the state of Louisiana, believe it or not.
Really?
So it might be something,
I thought the law failed to pass this year in Louisiana because I know that they really wanted to tackle it there.
That was the last show prep I had over the weekend, but it could have.
Well, we want to see something like that next year because it's really
It's got to be blankets, Ken, because there's always something else coming up. I mean, you get rid of one thing and something else pops up there.
Yeah. They're playing whack-a-mole. You know, you ban some new thing, and then 3 weeks later, some new synthetic drug pops up.
Yeah. Do you guys do any kind of overview or analysis of what's being sold at these stores? In other words, what percentage of this is in the smoking form compared to candies?
No, I've heard from a few dispensaries anecdotally. It's about 50-50 of smokables and non-smokables. A lot of people are asking for non-smokables. We've got our patient population is mostly above the age of 55, so it's a lot of people who don't want to smoke.
But you do have some children on it, or do we know?
I don't know. I don't have demographic information. I think the state might be putting out some later this year, but a lot of that's protected. It's just mostly anecdote stuff that I hear from dispensaries.
You have to be at least 18 years of age or older, of course. So when I say kids, that's through the parents and you have to have a current diagnosis of a debilitating medical condition, and the list is all there on the health department's website. Hold a written certification from a doctor, and of course be a Mississippi resident with proof of residency, like driver's license or a state ID card or something like that. So those are the things to qualify.
That's correct.
All right. So any other big news going on that we need to know about?
I don't think so. I think the program is steadily developing. We've got a little over 70 dispensaries across the state. We've got a lot of different strains and products on the market. So I think we're moving very well especially compared to our neighbors to the east and west.
Most of your members of the association are growers, or just all the way through to growers and everything else. The last problem we had was testers, and I'm not sure if there's any new information on that.
So we have two testing companies, one in Natchez,
still two,
one in Flowood, and then we should have one.
I'm sorry, I was talking over you. One in, did you say Natchez?
Yes.
One in Natchez and one in Flowood.
Yes, and we should have one up in Holly Springs sometime later this year.
Same company or a different company?
Different company.
And you said how many dispensaries do we have?
A little over 70.
Across the state. Do we have how many licenses do we have out there to be considered in the hopper?
Well, we have over, I think, 350 licensed companies. I'm not sure how many are in the hopper, but that's how many are licensed, and maybe about half of them are operational. And I think the other half are trying to figure out if they even want to get out of the program altogether.
Last time we were talking about there's a wait-and-see attitude. Is that still the case? Are we nearing an end of that? Or
yes,
where
it's still that. I think a lot of people are waiting.
It's still a lot of wait-and-see, huh? Always good report, sir. Thank you so very much. Have a happy 4th. What are you cooking for tomorrow?
Good old hot dogs and hamburgers.
On the grill.
That's right.
That's American. That's American.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.